Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day to all of you, my dear students. So, as the statement simply tells you, a report is basically a structured form of writing. Now, structure basically reflects everything that writing is not just done in a random way. It has to be well organized. It should have a proper sequence. That is the first quality when we talk about the report. And what's the basic thing which simply is like a characteristic of this report? Once this writing is structured and then it's basically used to identify some problem which is basically part of this report, then moving ahead, you examine that problem in detail, and then once you have achieved some findings, you are able to organize them, once again taking you back towards the first point, that is of a structured form of writing. So if you organize your finding and then you present them to your target audience, very simply you can define this as a report. How simple is that? You have already started taking notes, I guess, huh? Well, the slides are there to help you. You'll get all the slides. But still, if you want to take notes just the way as I can see few of you started already with your ball pens on your laps. You've already started working. Even I can see some of you sitting in your room chairs. Some of you are there on your bed trying to relax and say, okay, how easy it is that a teacher is there in our bedroom teaching us. And this is the cool part of this hybrid learning, and I want you to just own it, that you being part of ComSets are able to just experience this new way of learning. So continue with it. If you want to take notes, nothing wrong with it. I'll just return back to where I was, that you basically have this structured form of writing where you identify a problem, then you examine that problem, as a result of which you get some results, you organize it. In that structured form of writing, you get a report. Let's move ahead to cover some other parts as well to see what's basically there within this report. When we say that it's a structured form of writing, so we refer to this fact that you basically structure it with some headings. It's not just about the sequence. You basically give it that sequence using the headings. Now, if you just think of the way you answer the questions, you have been answering questions within your school days, early school days, you come to college. So you are always taught to make your answer presentable. And you have been learning this thing for a purpose. Well, one of the purposes is this as well, that once you enter that professional environment, you are able to present yourself and present your writing in a structured way. And over here, once again, headings are very much important. And that's where it's written over here. You move ahead, what does these heading do? So another thing to know is that if I just put the arrow on the second point, is it basically shows that this structured form of writing has each and every component which is independent. Like if I refer to the basic structure of a report, it begins with the title page, then of course you have executive summary, table of contents, then introduction, then the body, method, results, discussion, conclusion, recommendation. You won't be able to just write them. Rewind back and just reduce the speed, you'll be able to write them down. But the purpose of mentioning all these headings, you can just write them afterwards. Purpose is that each and every section is independent. Like, for example, there are certain people who are only interested to read the executive summary because they just want to know what is it all about. So that means that this executive summary section, which comes at the very beginning, summary of all the whole report, is the only thing which exists independently as well, that if you write it separately and the person reads it, he or she would be able to know what is it all about. So this is what this point is referring to, that this structured form of writing has independent component sections. Every section is independent of the other. They are related. I'm not saying that it's like a haphazard writing in which these things have been placed together intentionally. without any cohesion and coherence. That's not the purpose. I'm just saying that the purpose of placing headings is that it should indicate that this is one section and it is independent of the other. Now our new section is about to take a start with a new heading. That's why you have headings. But I shouldn't take too much time over here. I know that you people are capable enough to understand the point, so let's move ahead. Impartial communication with facts and figures. This is what makes it a report, that it should have these facts and figures. It should be in the form of factual information. It shouldn't be based on fiction. No storytelling, no fictionalization. What you require are facts and figures. These should be there. And that's what's written over here very clearly, that it's an impartial communication. Impartial, because there isn't any biasness within your content. You are just presenting facts as you have collected them, as you have analyzed them, on the basis of which you are providing the conclusion. That's the thing which should be there within your mind while studying the characteristics of a report. If we move ahead and talk about the expectations, what is basically expected within a report? So when you are talking about its structure, when you are discussing it in journal, well, the first lecture is all about the journal discussion. From the next lecture and onwards, we'll look into the detail of what is it all about and how it is basically structured, what is the format, what is the sequence. We'll be talking about it. But first, what is basically expected to be there within a report? First of all, you require a hypothetical situation. And by that situation, I mean the situation if you are working at a place, or even if you are a student, a situation which is assigned to you by your senior. It can be a teacher, it can be your boss, but they give you a situation, and that situation basically exists as a problem. This point of this problem, remember the word problem that I have just said. This problem is very much important. It should be there, because you basically write that report to identify, then analyze, then organize. The three arrows that I just referred back to in past, think of them. So there has to be a problem that you will analyze using a methodology that you have finalized and improved with your teachers. Afterwards, you collect the results, you analyze them, on the basis of which you provide some conclusion and a set of recommendations. So it all begins from that situation, from that problem. It should be there, and that problem, my dear students, is stated in the form of a topic. That's how it all begins. So let's move ahead. Once that topic is defined, you need to have a purpose. Your report should have a purpose as well. That why are you basically doing this? Why are you writing that report? That thing is basically reflected when you structure your report into a proposal. Report can have different purposes. It can be for resolving a problem. It can be related to getting some sort of funding, some grant. You first require this report to get the approval of your boss for carrying out an action. So for that purpose, this report is also structured. And that purpose is basically mentioned over here as well. That reason because of which you are writing that report. If we move ahead, not to take much long, have you noted the points? Those of you who have like already started taking the points, can I move ahead? Okay. So the next thing is that if you connect it with the previous point, it will become even more easier for you to follow. Addressing a client or a manager. A report is not written for yourself. It is always addressed to another person, who is your direct addressee, your audience, your target audience. Some cases can be your colleague. In some cases, some of your subordinates. In certain cases and scenarios, your boss. And most probably your seniors, the administration. So for that, you basically structure a report, and to address them, if you have to communicate something to them, you basically write a report. So that is also expected to be there within a report. A topic should be there. There should be a clearly defined purpose, and you need to be addressing someone within your report as well, rather than just stating it all for yourself. Then I think even if I ask you, had you been there, I would have asked you that. What basically is this? A format with headings. So don't you think it's directly related with the point that I just discussed earlier? Imagine and bring that point that I discussed in the very beginning, structured form of writing. So you need to have a clearly defined format, an approved format which is provided to you by your office or by your university, but there has to be a format with headings. Then impartial communication, we talked about it. This is once again the reference. So that's why I discussed it, and now it is being expected to be there if you are the one who is writing the report. There has to be an objective language as well. And one of the outcome of going through the whole course is the research skills. So success would come, and I'm sure that you will be successful with some good research skills. And research skills would develop when you will be well aware of the scientific method, and as we all know, it all begins with some observation. You need to observe the surroundings, especially for identifying the problem. If it's not already provided to you by your seniors, then observing, then analyzing, then applying the methodology and collecting data, then coming up with some results, and then concluding, and then recommendation. That is the sequence, and that will determine the success that you're going to get. I'm about to move towards the next slide, but if you want to take a break, that is the time. Even I will take a sip of water as well, if you are going for a break as well. And even if you are like, that's enough for today, we have to digest it, so you can just simply, put me at a side. I won't harm you, I won't come out to kill you. But the thing is, you need to take a break and then return back once you're feeling fresh. We'll continue from it as well. But I'm about to take a start, whether you return back or not, because I have to finish the task that I've already started working on. So you can just take a break and then return back. I'll welcome you once again. I guess now you're feeling fresh, and am I allowed to move ahead? Okay. Let's take a start and move towards the next section, and that is with respect to the purpose. Now, there is first we were talking and referring to the reason because of which you are writing the report. But there is also a reason because of which a report is written. So what's that purpose because of which a report is being written? Let's look at it. Well, the first and the foremost is that you need to provide information. Someone requires information, especially within that professional environment within which a report is generally written. So that is why it has to be structured. Otherwise, you would have communicated anything to anyone within no time, informally. But this reason because of which it has to be kept formal, technical, and all the terms which we are using, it's because of the fact that it has to be used within a professional environment. And whenever an information is required and it has to be placed in written, you basically provide it in the form of a report. So information, you move ahead just the way as I told you that when we were talking about a proposal. So when you require a permission or a consent or a permit from your boss, from your seniors, so for that purpose you basically try to write this report in such a way that you're able to persuade them for getting an approval. So this is also one of the purposes for which a report is generally written. In addition, directly relating with the previous one is that if you are successful, if it's a successful report, if I write it, and if I just call it as a successful report, having all the features of a good report that we are going to see in the upcoming lecture, so in that way you would be able to influence their thinking, their perspectives of your target audience. And once the thinking has been influenced, what you're going to achieve is the initiation of an action that you really want them to take. So that's the way this cyclical process is very much important when we talk about the purpose of a report. So I believe that now most of you are clear about the point. Now if we move ahead and talk about the significance of report writing, why a report is basically written. So you can just look at the blue line, the way it's written, clearly defining the purpose and the significance, that it's basically a written communication within an organization following a hierarchy. So as I told you that in most of the professional environments, you need to put things in written for communication, and for that basic purpose, report serves the part. And the manner in which this communication takes place is either upward, starting from the lower strata, the employees moving towards the employer, their manager, their directors, their executives, and it can be the downward communication as well, starting from the top, coming towards the bottom. And it can be the third option, of course, the parallel communication, which is all with your colleagues, people of the same level, people of the same rank. So that is the way you should remember that this is the significance. You need to put things in written. Once again, I'm stating the same point, that whenever you are working in a professional environment, learn this thing, that everything which is said doesn't count. You need to put things in the form of writing, and for that you need to learn all those technical skills, that structured way of putting things, and that way you would be able to write a good report. But the way this communication takes place, for which a report is needed, report can either be going towards like employer to an employee, employee to an employee, that parallel communication, or an upward communication starting from employee towards the employer. So clear about it? Can we move? When we talk about the relevance of a report, why is it so pertinent? Because of which it is like in every professional environment. Even you can name the places. Even when I turn on the TV, when I'm even listening to the news, when I'm watching the news, they're always saying that a report has been submitted to this office or this organization. Every time, every place, they have been told to file a report or provide a report with respect to that incident which has taken place. You open up the newspaper, so it's all the incidents are basically being reported. So do you see the significance of this report writing, how it is so important, and especially within a professional environment has the significance at its pinnacle. But looking at the points, means of internal communication. So that's the way this communication takes place within a professional environment, especially for internal communication. Think of all those points: employer to employee, upward, downward, and parallel communication. It also facilitates in decision making and planning, because you'll be getting, if you are at administrative position, you'll be getting the proposals, and you'll be the one who is doing all the decision making and planning. And moving ahead, if you are the one who is gradually rising, getting promoted and going at the top, so you will be the one initiating certain proposals for the success of the organization. So that's the way it facilitates, it helps in the decision making planning, because you simply provide a written account of things, and you provide things in written. Then of course, a third important point, as we discussed earlier, that it all is about disclosing unknown information. You are provided with a problem, and you basically have to analyze it, calculate, and get all the results. So those results are basically coming after your analysis of that problem, which means it wasn't there earlier. So now if it has arisen, if it has come, which means it's an unknown information, so it has been disclosed and it is being submitted and provided in the form of a report. So for that, this report writing is also very much relevant. And of course, for sharing information with the employees, that's the significance of a report as well, which is why these things have been written. So I believe now report looks quite relevant to you, and you will not have any issue when it comes to writing your own report as well. Am I right? You have to prove it actually. When the time comes, you are assigned this task of writing a report, and I'm sure you'll be able to do it the way we're going to explain and learn each and every section the way it is written. But let's move ahead. I just had my break. You didn't notice, but I had a few sips of water, and now once again feel quite fresh, and I am having the energy to move ahead. If you need it, once again, I am reminding you, knock knock. If you need a break, just pause the video, move around. When you feel fresh, return back, we'll take a start. but I'm moving, okay? So let's take a start with the attributes, the characteristics of a report, what it basically has when it comes to writing a report. A report is basically a methodical, well-planned document which outlines and evaluates a subject or problem. So I don't think it requires that much of an explanation, because as I already mentioned to you, it all begins, the journey starts from that identification of a problem. If you have that problem, you will start analyzing it, and on the basis of which results, discussion, conclusion, recommendations. So this is basically the point. And why methodical? Because you need to have a clearly defined methodology that you're going to apply. For example, if you need to carry out a survey, so for that survey you need to have a questionnaire. So that is basically a methodology that you're going to use. If you want to collect your data in the form of the interview, so first you need to have some people who are going to be your interviewee, and you need to have a set of questions as well through which you would be able to get all the data that you require. So that's why you require planning. That means it's a well-planned document, that you have done all the preparation for it, and you have the appropriate methodology as well for analyzing the subject and problem. Essentially, a report is a short, sharp, concise document which is written for a particular purpose and audience. This understanding of the audience will also come. Little minor reference, there are different types of audience that we'll be discussing: high-tech, low-tech, lay, multicultural, multi-level audience. That will be coming ahead. I will be giving you all the things alongside some examples. But the point here is that it has to be short. Short doesn't mean that you miss out any information. It should be concise, it should be complete as well. And over here, I am basically referring to the 7 C's of communication that we are going to see, the way you can apply them in your writing. So it has to be short and should be written with a purpose and for a clearly defined audience. These are the things which should be there, and especially the characteristics of a well-written report. So it basically analyzes the situation, a problem, often making recommendation for future action as well. Does it require any explanation? It's basically for you, especially the ones who are not writing, who just want things to be there and you can just get them printed and prepare for the exam. So points there for you as well. And the one, people like me, who just want to write some key points first after going through some material, and then are able to express themselves. So you can just note them down as well, do your exercise. But as I am moving ahead, it's a factual paper and needs to be clear and well structured. So another point, going in line with the way we carried out our earlier discussion. So now, just a quick review. You can see what we have just discussed. Features of a well-written report. Now, the way we have carried out the discussion, even you can do the exercise of writing, thinking and imagining of a problem. Suppose that there is a problem that you want to work on. After identifying, how are you going to express it? So these are the things which should be there. These are the features, this is the criteria, the checklist, and you have to meet it, especially when writing a report. So a clarity of thought should be there. You're clear about the problem that you are working on. That means that there is a clarity of thought within your mind. You're clear about the method that you have to use. You're clear about the way you're going to provide the set of recommendation. This is the clarity of thought. You move ahead, complete and self-explanatory. Nothing is missed out. Comprehensive yet compact, which means that everything is there and everything is complete. Nothing has been missed out. That's why it's like a compact package which is provided to your target audience. Comprehensive, it's complete in every way. And of course, if we talk about the last one, presented in a lucid style, which means that when it comes to its written presentation, the structuring, the heading, the use of bullets, the use of graphs, everything plays its parts. So in addition to that, you basically make it a presentable form of writing And the next stage, when you have to present your results verbally, standing in front of the audience, well, that skill will be sharpened, it will be developed within the upcoming lecture, as well as I mentioned earlier that we have a lecture on the presentation skills as well. So just to put a check on all these, we have talked about the clarity of thought. It should be there. It should be complete and self-explanatory. It should be complete and compact, and it should have the proper presentation. And that presentation, right now I'm referring to the written presentation. The one which will come afterwards, as I mentioned, will come afterwards in the upcoming lectures. Let's move ahead. This is basically the section which has been included for you to just understand the basic differences and the similarities which are there between the report as well as the essays. When we talk about the points and the comparative analysis of report and essay, in case of your report is basically used in a business environment. Let me just tick mark it so that you are able to remember on which point I'm there. So on a business setting, you basically use a report. For scientific and technical subjects, a report is also written, because this technical form of writing is basically used for analyzing some scientific problem, and if there is some sort of discovery that you have to present. So for all these purposes, you basically use this structure of a report. And once again, for businesses, goes in line with your environment of a workplace. Over there, you basically use an essay. Talking about the essay, you have been writing essay right from your earlier classes. You were made to write some sort of essay. There were stages in which we were not even sure what we are writing, but we used to do this cram learning. It was part of our early ages, but gradually we started to think, and that is basically the exercise of argumentation, logical reasoning, coming up with some conclusion, some deductive conclusion. You simply deduce certain things and provide them in the form of a conclusion. So for that exercise, you basically have the purpose which is served by an essay. So you do the argumentation, you do the logical reasoning, you provide a set of conclusion. So this is basically the way an essay is structured. So there are certain similarities and certain differences. To make it a bit more easier for you to follow, let's look at the similarities which are there when we talk about a report and an essay. But when the next stage comes, I want you to follow those points very carefully. Even the ones who just want to rely on the slide itself, I want you to at least write few key points for you to remember. We talk about the similarities, so it all begins from the introduction. The body should be there, coming up with all the details which are needed within the body. And then you talk about the conclusion. The conclusion stage also comes. Right afterwards, you require some analytical thinking as well. Why? Because don't you think we had this problem at the very beginning, which is being identified, which is being analyzed. So you would be able to analyze something with this analytical thinking. So your analytical abilities and skills are very much needed and are required when we talk about a report. And same goes for the essay as well, because if you have to argue for something, you need to do that critical thinking as well. You need to analyze certain factors and situations which are there in front of you. And once these situations are there, you would be able to argue and talk about it. You'd be able to do this comparison and contrast and argue about things. So that's why this analytical thinking goes in both places. Moving ahead, the formal style. A style has to be there. There is an order in which things are placed, or sections are sequenced within a report, and same goes for the manner in which you basically write an essay. You cannot write conclusion at the beginning, body at the end, introduction in the center. So that means that there is a sequence as well. Talking about the order, the overall order, in case of an essay, of course, you have the thesis statement which is coming at the very beginning. Then you move ahead with explaining all the points with paragraph, And once again, within those paragraphs, you try to prioritize those paragraphs, the most important place first, and then one which is going in line with the first one and a little less, but almost the same and supporting the point which was discussed earlier. And within that paragraph itself, you first provide the topic sentence and then afterwards some supporting details which are like coherent with one another, as well as going in line with the topic sentence as well as your thesis statement. So that's the way you basically can see that there is always a formal style when we are talking about a report and an essay. And in case of writing, the next thing, of course, is careful proofreading. So you require careful proofreading, and this proofreading technique is also coming for you in the upcoming lectures when we'll be talking about the 3 stages of the writing process. I'm not talking about the pre-writing, not writing, but once you are done with something, you basically proofread to identify all the errors if they are there, to remove them and to make it a perfect content. So these are some of the similarities which are also there. And talking about the neat presentation, just the way you can see a little bit of neat presentation of all the points, the way they are coming in front of you. So this presentation within the writing also counts, which is why in case of your report, you have headings, subheadings, bullets for presenting things in the appropriate way. And in case of your essay, you basically have to argue, you have to write about your opinion, you have to come up with some conclusion. So this writing basically is properly presented, because if you're not clear, your writing won't be clear, and that like ambiguous writing is going to reflect that your thought is also not that clear, and that's why the essays are rejected when they do not have that clear thought. So what have we discussed? It has this proper introduction, proper body, conclusion, clear analytical thinking, a clear formal style in both cases. In both cases, you require that proofreading to make it a perfect document, and everything is cross-checked whether it's neatly presented or not. But if we move ahead and talk about some of the key differences, I think someone is getting tired. I can wait for you if you want. If someone's phone is ringing, you can attend it, pause the video, nothing wrong with it. But if you need to take a break, I can't wait for it. I have to remind it, but that's the way things are. But we are about to move towards the end. It's almost the end, nothing to worry about. We can just conclude it, and then you are free from this lecture. Just the last section, of course, of the key differences when we talk about a report and its comparison and its contrast with the essay. So in case of a report, it basically presents the information, not an argument, as it was written at the very start when we were, I guess, 2 slides back. Over there, in case of talking about the structure of an essay, I told you logical reasoning, argumentation, and then coming up with a good conclusion. So that is one difference as well. Over here, in case of a report, you have to work on that problem and then provide the results the way you have achieved them. So that's how this information is going to stay as factual, based on facts, rather than you entering that element of subjectivity. Subjectivity has to be kept at its minimum. This is how we define and how we differentiate between the two. So this is one point. Secondly, a report is meant to be scanned quickly by the reader. This is also a very much important point. But because in case of an essay, your essay is basically structured in which one point directly supports the other, and if you want to follow and get all the information you need to go through that whole story the way it has been written within an essay. Whereas a report is structured in such a way that a person like a boss, for example, who has multiple reports to read, she has to attend different meetings, they have to go at some session, they have some seminar to attend, they have some meeting, and so on. But the point is they have short time. So for that purpose, if they have to see a report the way it has been written, they're going to focus on the executive summary. and that'll give them the idea. If they want to just look at some more important points, they develop the interest and they want to say, okay, this seems quite relevant, let me look at some of the important findings. The important findings would be stated in a separate section, and even if they are bulleted, how good is that? Everything is being provided within splash of seconds. They can just simply move over to that relevant page in which all the relevant findings are stated in the form of bullets. Don't you think points stated in the form of bullets are quite easy to read compared to the way they are written, the way books are written, or the way an essay is written? Well, you do not have to violate the format. If you are supposed to write an essay, that means that you have to write it in the way it is supposed to be written, whereas in case of a report, you have the space of presenting your information so that the audience can easily access the information which they are looking for. So that's how you can have a bit of difference between the two. So that's difference number two, that your report is basically meant to be scanned quickly by the reader, because they look at the executive summary, whole idea, introduction, basic point, purpose, what you have simply studied in order to carry out the literature survey, what was your method, everything stated differently. What were your important findings? What's your conclusion? And what are the bullet points which are clearly giving me the recommendations? So that's the way you get all the information, and that's how you are able to quickly scan that report. The upcoming points are like, once again, that I have stated, what you basically do to make that document accessible. You use numbered headings and subheadings, which are not the case when we talk about an essay. In case of an essay, just as I told you, intro, body, conclusion, everything in detail. Whereas in case of your report, I told you different sections, intro, body, conclusion, recommendation, numbered headings and subheadings. Everything is coming in a sequence. Uses short, concise paragraphs and dot points where applicable. So dot points are the same bullet points that I'm referring to, that if you write them, it's quite easily for the reader to follow those dot points rather than reading things line by line, because that takes a lot of time. Uses graphics wherever possible in the form of tables, graphs and illustration. So that is also a very important component. You have time for preparing a report, and you're able to place all the relevant tables, graphs and illustration. You have time for it, you have sufficient space for it, so you're able to place it accordingly. You're able to think of the right place where to fit all these graphs so that they may look presentable, because that counts. Presentation counts. You have to put things where they should be rather than just providing them in a single page, all the tables, all the graphs. That won't look nice. If it fits there, it should be there. If it doesn't, you have to take it to the next page. Moving ahead, the report may need an abstract, sometimes called as an executive summary, especially in those situations in which there is a shortage of time. But the general format also demands from you to write this executive summary. This is according to the format. So it should be there that you write an executive summary which should come at the beginning. Now over here, there might be a little bit confusion that I have to clarify. When you're actually working on a report, when you are actually writing a report, this executive summary, although it comes at the beginning, but has to be written at the end. Why? You'll be saying, this thing comes at the beginning, how is that possible that you write it at the end? Because this is basically the summary of the whole report that you have written. And once you go through the whole material, you know each and everything, and you would be able to provide the gist of it within that executive summary. That's why it has to be written at the end. But of course, for your boss, for your teachers, because of their shortage of time, it has to be placed at the beginning, because that is the official format of structuring a report. So that's how you can get all the explanation with respect to that point, and I believe you are clear about it. And of course, it's often, and I would say always, followed by recommendation. In your case, you will be made to work on providing some set of recommendation as well in case of your report. So you have to prepare yourself, fasten your seatbelts, because in your case, coming up with some good conclusion won't be the end of the story, but you have to provide a set of recommendation as well. So what have we talked about? This is basically a sample which has been discussed earlier. So that's why this is the sample. Look at it. The way headings are there, you can see quick facts about business, bullet points, the way I talked about, numerical figures, some extra information, business coaching trip. Let's move ahead. Graph, this is the one that I was talking about. Just look at the way information is being provided. Where it fits, information is there. Graph alongside a table. That's how your presentation counts, and that's the way it should be there when it comes to your own report as well. So this is the sample. I believe now you got the idea, and I guess I missed this one. Look at this way, a graph clearly indicating a rise in profit. Yeah, coaching return on investment. Now you can clearly see the headings are there, the bullet points, headings and subheadings are there, the numerical data is also present, because you'll have the time for collecting all the information and then presenting it as well. So that's the way you present all the data, and at the end, qualities of a good report. With that, you'll be free, and I'll be as well for this session. So there has to be clarity, there should be definition of different concepts which are being used. There should be a careful use of all the terminologies which are there within your report. It should clarify that problem which is being worked on. It should be overall presentable, just the way you have seen the sample. Everything has to be well organized. That data should be included and well presented. It should be short and compact, the way as I told you it should be. Should be based on authentic data. This is once again the reference of facts and figures based on factual information, and it should have that proper citation and bibliography that we are going to learn in the upcoming session as well. And there is a detailed session on plagiarism, what it is, how you can avoid it, what are the different citation styles, like we have talked and we will be discussing. This brings us to the last slide. I don't think there is a need of reflecting and explaining all the points which are written within these slides. In future, if it's needed, I can refer to these. But the point here is that in addition, we had a very good introduction. Even I enjoyed it, certainly explaining all the points to you, and your feedback will be awaited as well, that you can simply share and forward through your course moderators who will be there to guide you and help you. But in addition, if there is anything that you would like to discuss, most welcome to forward it to the proper channel, and I'll be there to help you and guide you in every possible way. So I imagine you to be there sometime getting bored with all the lecture, the duration, but I almost try to give you all the tips which are needed to follow the lecture, as well as take all the breaks which are needed to have your concentration back. So class dismissed, and I will forward your attendance with the Office of Hybrid Learning, and I'll simply tell them that they were all very much careful, they followed all the lectures, and they are very much interested to listen to all the other lectures which are coming ahead as well. So I enjoyed my session. Thank you very much. If there is anything to discuss, you are most welcome.